That's a good question, and the qualities that an ambassador should have are, they should be marketable. They should be someone who can relate to personal, PR. They can troubleshoot the society, the direct community that the nonprofit is within, as well as the community that the nonprofit is trying to serve. So the ambassador needs to be that person to be on the rooftops shouting out, the good things that the nonprofit is doing for two reasons. One reason would be for the progression and moving forward of the agenda of the nonprofit. That's primary, right? But then secondary, related to what we're doing, is they need to make themselves aware to these up and coming board members, who wants to be a part of, organizations, institutions that they believe in. So if this ambassador is on the rooftops shouting out the good things that this nonprofit is doing, it makes it much easier to recruit these new board members. So I think the ambassador has to be a person, and honestly, we talked about this before, all board members, have some aspect of ambassadorship or characteristics, but there really needs to be, a few people or a person that their strategic, intentional duty, one of their intentional duties is to be that person who, like I said, is on the rooftops shouting out the good things that the nonprofit is doing, again, for brand awareness, not just for increasing the share of impact that the nonprofit has in the community, but also to make themselves known to the society at large that could be potential recruits in the future to replace, current board members. So that's what an ambassador, the characteristics that they, should have. This is a tough question. This question depends on what the board is looking for. So a board that is strategic, and when I say strategic, they know what they need in order to improve the functionality, the efficiency, the capabilities of the board. Those particular boards will have very specific, unique things for each and every new board member that they bring on. Because if you think about it, we talked about, and I know we have a question coming up dealing with this, but we talked about diversity. So if a board strategically knows, hey, we are an interior design nonprofit, we organize, we institute things surrounding art and design. And yes, we need, somebody that has some type of legal expertise on our board. That would be beautiful. Yes, we need somebody that has some marketing skill set or knowledge on our board. That would be beautiful. But we need somebody that knows about art. We need somebody that knows what makes sense to get involved with, as far as maybe designing, maybe bringing in different products, connecting to different artists in the market or different designers. We need somebody that has that ability. So they are going to look for that particular board member that has certain skill sets surrounding art, design, things of that nature. So that's the board that's strategic. The other boards, I would say, if they're not intentional about what they need on the board and what they're looking for diversity wise, they should sit down at the table and figure it out. Because what you don't want is, a bunch of accountants, right? Everybody's accountant, so nobody really has any understanding, or I shouldn't say any understanding, but nobody has, that, fluid understanding of the nonprofit if the nonprofit is involved in construction, right? You got a bunch of accountants. Who's the general contractor? Is there a general contractor on the board? Like who's the person that can connect to the boots on the ground activity of the nonprofit? And so you want to be very strategic when it comes to evaluating the resume of different board members. So it should be diverse. It just depends on what the board at large is looking for. So when they review applicants, the applicants might be very diverse, but all the applicants might be good candidates because they're looking for individuals who are diverse, who can bring different things to the table. So I would say the best thing for a board to look for on a resume would be pushed back on them. What is the board looking for? So they need to determine what is it that they want, and then that will drive forward what they should be looking for on a resume. This is a really good question, and I'm going to probably repeat something that we already mentioned in previous sessions, but I think there's several things that come to mind as far as what's really good to have when it comes to diversity. Let's first recap on what diversity is, because you tend to think some folks who are in the ethos of ethnicities, they say, okay, we have all these different, races and all these different cultures and stuff like that. They just think of that exclusively. But diversity has many facets. You can have a social economic diversity. Somebody comes from not an organization, but a family who is very wealthy versus somebody that comes from a family that is very poor, right? You can also have diversity in age groups. You can have, your teeny boppers, bless all your hearts out there. And then you have your elderly, and then you have your middle-aged, parents kind of taking care of both the kids and the parents, aging population. So you have a diversity in age, right? And you can also have a diversity, and maybe not ethnicity, but maybe in country, language, and then within that, you can have, diversity within the country, and ethnicity, getting back to that ethnic piece of it. So there's different areas of diversity. Diversity in the types of sports you like. It just kind of, the gambit just goes on and on and on. For a nonprofit, from a nonprofit's perspective, they actually should be looking at what they're doing, right? So going back to our discussion, hey, we're a nonprofit, who are we serving? What type of community are we serving? Can we identify with that community? Are we imposing different services and different products and different opportunities on them that they really don't want, they really don't need, but we feel that they need it? Have we sat down and talked to anybody and understood, where they're coming from, what their actual needs are as they see them? So from that vantage point, I would say the diversity needs to look at the community that you're serving, making sure that on your board you have, if not folks from the community itself, you have individuals on the board that are so empathetic that they bend over backwards and humble themselves quite a bit just to understand and learn and know about what is it that this community needs from us, and what are they requesting, what are they shouting out as far as lacking services, products, whatever. And that needs to be the driver of the diversity, because I may be on a board and serving a community, I have no clue about what the community needs, what their background is, and might not want to know, right? So if that's me, the question is, what purpose do I serve on the board, and could my purpose be kept and the nonprofit still thrive and grow and have a significant impact on the community, or do we need to replace me with somebody who is more empathetic, who has maybe the skill sets that I have, but they're much more empathetic. They might even come or be related or affiliated with the community that they're serving, versus me. I'm out there on left field, don't know anything about that community, come from a whole other side of the tracks. So that's the thing that you have to look at, because sometimes it makes sense. Like, we need a lawyer. A lawyer might not know anything about the community, but the types of things that the nonprofit does requires interpretation of the law. So we need a lawyer, so that's, in that respect, yeah, let's get who we can get. Not saying we just, take on anything, but if they're a decent person and they know law, let's allow them to be on the board. But that means that the other individuals on the board need to be able to compensate for the understanding of the nonprofit that the lawyer is lacking. So when they get into community, because remember, a board makes decisions together. So when they get into a community to start making decisions, that person can balance the scales when the lawyer wants to say, no, let's do it this way. Hey, wait a minute. Our community that we serve, they need these things also to be implemented. So we can't just do it that way. We have to recognize these other things, and we need to compromise and do it this medium way kind of a thing. So you want to just look at, who you're serving, what their needs are. Do they have representation, right, on your board? If they do not have representation, is there somebody that is humble enough that's going the extra mile to make sure that their voice is actually heard on and in the board meetings? So that's what I would say about board diversity. This is a good question. It's a question that we battled throughout this boot camp, board succession and term limits. So in today's marketplace, it's actually, I can't even say in today's marketplace, it's very dynamic, right? Because we are dealing with, I'll just say, a continuous pandemic, right? And we're dealing with, trying to figure things out. We got all this stuff going on, trying to keep ourselves out of recession, trying to keep pace with the increasing food costs, trying to do all of these things. And you sit there and say, okay, now we need to think about board succession. Like, who's going to replace me? A lot of boards, rightfully so, are like, you know what, that's not the primary, on the top of the priority list right now. We have two other things going on. We got to make sure we stay afloat in this marketplace. They're not thinking about that, right? But it is important, and honestly, a lot of boards probably froze, the cyclical, if they had 3-year terms or 4-year terms or whatever. A lot of boards probably froze it in this respect, not physically froze it, but froze it in the sense that they just automatically knew, right? In these last 2 to 3 years, it's probably been an automatic renewal, because the challenge and the effort that has to go into replacing individuals on the board, that's what this board bootcamp was about. How do we engage the public and make them aware, the folks that are coming up, new professionals, that they're needed, their resources, their understanding, their talent is needed on boards. How do we make that happen? How do we push that forward? And it's tough. When you have a lot of things going on, you have the current board members not really as savvy when it comes to reaching out to the different populations that they might need to reach out to replace them. It's very difficult. So, but in a perfect world, you can have, I think the standard for, I shouldn't say standard, but the practice, for a active board, nonprofit board, would be between 3 and 5 years board succession, right? A rotation. So after 3 years, then you rotate off and somebody else rotates on. What does that mean? So you have like a president that rotates off and another president that rotates on, or a chair. President and chair kind of used synonymous, but the chair of the board rotates off and new one rotates on. The secretary rotates off, another secretary rotates on, and then the treasurer, so forth and so on. But again, that's very strategic. And unless you have a particular plan that you integrate every single cycle, it's going to be tough. I know that there are boards out there that use their organization. So you have like Boys and Girls Club. Let's talk about them. So Boys and Girls Club, I was actually, personally, I was affiliated with the Boys and Girls Club. I was a member, when I was a kid. So they might use me. Let's go to the pool of adults who used to be boys and girls, in the Boys and Girls Club, that took advantage of all the opportunities and the access to, training and development and social skills, and just let's, sift through them and their resumes and add to. So that particular process is really cool, because you can dip into a pool that's already aware of the nonprofit, already aware of what they do and the good things that can come out of it. So that's another way to integrate the board succession into a nonprofit that in a seamless way. But other nonprofits are not like that. They're not, juggernauts like the Boys and Girls Club, or what is it called? The American Red Cross or Goodwill. Those are juggernauts, but you might have just your, small state-sized nonprofits who are, it's just them and it's the board. And to replace themselves, others need to be aware of them, and you need to be someone on that board needs to be able to communicate to the public, hey, this is what we are, this is what we do, and this is what we need. And this is the talent that we need to come and to replace us, and feel good about it because the type of things that we're doing in the community are in line with your morals, your ethics, and your values. But again, you need somebody out there to be, letting everybody know and conveying that message, because if there's nobody out there, I don't know who you are, so it's a very difficult area in these days and times when it comes to board succession. There is board succession, and it does happen, but with where we are right now, it's probably more of a situation where we have to reinstitute, I want to say, in a lot of respect, board succession, because of where we're coming out of, where we're kind of, where we find ourselves right now. We're going to have to figure it out and get back to a healthy point of succession. And all that is letting the current folks that are sitting on the board, go. They can rotate back in, but kind of sit out for a few years, rest a bit, and bring a whole new team in to have them, learn, understand, and get some fresh outlooks and fresh understandings and fresh messages out there to the world concerning the nonprofit. They can bring their new talents and address new things. So that's what I'll say about board succession. Okay, we want to thank you for watching our Board Bootcamp series. That was an awesome ride, and I want you all to stay tuned. We have a lot of different projects in the works that are coming down the pipeline soon, so just stay tuned on that.